Game Freak developed Pokémon Gold, Silver, and Crystal with the idea that these would be the finale to the Pokémon franchise as a whole. Though they seem archaic nowadays in some ways, these were most certainly a success at the time and still hold up today in my opinion. And though they could have decided to stop where they were and move on to another IP, I think all parties involved knew that there was far greater potential for the Pokémon series. After all, new hardware was soon coming in the form of the Game Boy Advance. Why then would they not try to make a bigger and better Pokémon game? After all, the potential was immense, and the possibilities were endless. Both for the games and, Game Freak's wallets, mind you, but, we don't talk about that part, do we? As they say, expand or die, right? And so the Game Boy Advance came with a new generation of Pokémon, in the form of Pokémon Ruby, Sapphire, and later an update known as Pokémon Emerald. And it is my belief that in celebration of Game Freak giving me yet another Pokémon game to ignore for the time being, it is time at last for me to take on the task of doing one of my weird triple threat playthroughs of Pokémon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Ephraim225, and welcome to my new Pokémon playthrough. Now, I had a lot of questions that I needed to answer before starting this playthrough in earnest, which is why the footage for this first episode is actually almost a year old, if you can believe it. I mean, that's what you get when you get caught up in all sorts of other stuff happening in the gaming industry right now, right? Well, I feel a lot more confident about this now, so I've made a couple of decisions for how this playthrough is going to roll. As I did with Gold, Silver, and Crystal, there's going to be 3 playthroughs, one on Ruby, one on Sapphire, and one on Emerald. This time around, however, I'm not going to define a particular playstyle for each of the 3 playthroughs. I'm actually going to roll with whatever I can come up with whatever tools I have at the time. Essentially letting the playthroughs evolve as they go on. Haha, Pokemon evolution. And another question that I think has to be raised has to do with the regional decks, which is a new thing. So, in this generation of Pokemon, in Ruby and Sapphire anyways, only 202 Pokemon were technically part of what's known as the regional decks for this generation. That means that despite the fact that there are now technically 386 different Pokemon thanks to all the new ones introduced in this generation, Ruby and Sapphire only restricted you to capturing 202, which was very controversial at the time because you also could not transfer any Pokemon from Gold, Silver, and Crystal thanks to hardware limitations. You just couldn't get a connection between a Game Boy Color and a Game Boy Advance. So despite Emerald adding the ability to capture a couple of Pokemon outside of the regional decks, I think for the time being I'm going to stick to the 202 that are part of this region's decks. Completing the entire Pokédex in Generation 3 is actually kind of a nightmare because you not only have Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, you have Fire Red and Leaf Green, which are remakes of the Kanto games, and then you have a couple of games on the Nintendo GameCube, which I would love to do playthroughs of in the future, actually. But for the purposes of capturing all the Pokemon, that's a hefty task, I must say, and I'm pretty sure it's impossible anyways, because I might be wrong on this, but I think depending on your region, one of the mythical Pokemon was just never released through an event, so it's impossible to have a full 386 without a cheat device anyways. But silly me, I've been talking and talking over this entire introduction with our new professor, Professor Birch, yet another professor named after a tree. It's almost like that's a theme. Well, if nothing else, I'm ready to get the party started if you are, and, where exactly are we? It's like we're in the back of a truck. It's like Metal Gear NES all over again. Uh-oh, the truck has started to move! In reality, this is a moving truck, and our protagonist here is apparently nothing more than a piece of property to his mother, because we had to ride in the back of the truck as we were moving to our new home. Wow, I feel so valued and liked by my family. I'm joking. So, curiously, I named this character Brendan because that's technically his canon name, but it didn't show up in the list of default names. That was very odd. We see that the movers themselves are Pokemon. A bunch of Machoke have moved all of our things into our house, including the fragile stuff like the GameCube, the television, the computer. But yeah, I'm sure they can handle all of that stuff without breaking it. And the computer had a potion in it. We're back to that, apparently. Seriously though, anytime I see a Pokemon working with humans in ways other than battling, it really makes me feel immersed in the world. And I also like that our protagonist here has very good taste. He has a GameCube in his room. Seriously, that console is only a failure if you compare it to the PlayStation 2's financial success. There were so many great games on the GameCube. Believe me, I wig out about this every time I see a GameCube. And now it's time to set the clock. Curiously for this game, there is indeed a real-time clock, however there is no day-night cycle. Apparently they thought having to wake up in the morning to catch a Phanpy or whatever wasn't that appealing, so they decided they were going to use a real-time clock to track certain events, but there's just not going to be any nighttime segments. This scene also confirms the first time in Pokemon history that the protagonist has an actual backstory, that being that my father is a gym leader. I mean, everyone speculated that was the case with Red and Giovanni, but you know. Another fun little detail is that if you chose to play the female protagonist, then you actually move into the other house. However, I should note that the blue color of the protagonist here is not something that was in the original game. I actually did that as a modification for the Sapphire playthrough, in order to add a little flavor. I think it's nice too. I also modified my Emerald version for this playthrough. I decided to change the male protagonist entirely to add flavor. Now, those of you who have played this game before will recognize who this character is. I thought he deserved a much bigger spotlight than he normally gets, and I'm sure players of the game will agree with me here. This generation also does something interesting by letting you steal from your rival. No wonder we have such a bloodthirsty rivalry. No, I'm just joking. Actually, this generation introduces the first of the infamous friendly rivals. They aren't really antagonistic towards us, but something very interesting is that if you choose to play the male avatar, then the female avatar becomes your rival and vice versa. I don't know why they don't do this more. They only did it again with the 6th generation, Pokemon X and Y, as far as I'm aware. They even have distinct personalities, with May having a crush on Brendan and Brendan being a complete chauvinist. Oh yeah, sure. Just because I'm a gym leader's kid, that obviously means I'm a guy, right? No, go ahead. Patronize me by offering to catch a Pokemon for me. I'll just be right over here becoming champion and rubbing it in your face later. All joking aside, this does lead to a bit of a quantum physics question when you consider that your choice can cause you to enter into an alternate universe where you and your rival have switched families and roles in the story, yet you both look completely the same as you did in the first universe. I guess. Hey, is Professor Birch in trouble? We should probably help him. But, you know, it looks pretty dangerous. Probably should get back to safety and leave him to die at the hands of the weakest wild encounter in the game. Alright, let's get in there and actually help him out. This is where we actually choose our starters, so it's very refreshing to have the choice of your starter completely recontextualized. You don't choose it in a lab like in the previous 2 generations. Anyway, our protagonists are Brendan, who chooses Torchic, May, who chooses Mudkip, and Wally, who chooses Trico. And as you can see, they all come with nice-looking backgrounds created by me. They feature the starters, their final evolutions, and the box legendaries. So let's get this underway. The first battle of a brand new generation of Pokemon, and we're up against a weird-looking raccoon, I guess. I mean, this is just going to be a tackle fight, right? Okay, it's a pound fight. I suppose there's a difference. There are a number of new battle mechanics in this generation, and I'm going to have to introduce you to each of them as they come up, because there's a lot to get around to if I just try to go on a lengthy explanation here and now. For now, let's just say Game Freak did an excellent job in forming a much more solid foundation for future additions to the battle mechanics. So, Professor, if you had 3 perfectly good Pokemon, why didn't you send them out against the Zigzagoon? Oh, well, now he wants me to meet his daughter. Isn't that just typical? No, I don't want to meet your daughter. What are you trying to do here? So does Professor Birch already know that May has a crush on the male protagonist or something? I didn't know there was going to be a romance subplot in my Pokemon games. No, I'm just kidding, of course, and Professor Birch doesn't take no for an answer, so I guess we have to go and meet them anyways. They better not complain about me trouncing them in every rival battle from here on out, though. So, after paying tribute to the greatest recurring NPC in the franchise, we begin our journey. Slowly. Man, look at this walking speed. I didn't notice how bad it was until now. I hope that fixes itself soon. Oh, for the love of... I almost got through the first route with no encounters. Well, let's move on. So, now we can finally start leveling up our starters, and hey, Mudkip here gets Mud Slap at level 6? Wow. That is very fast to be learning an actual good move. I mean, it's Mud Slap, so it's not exactly, excuse me, I do not appreciate being automatically walked to buildings. So we're here in the first town, which also consists of 4 buildings. It's not really a town, it's more like a settlement, but we can enter the Pokemon Mart, and would you listen to that? What a catchy tune for going shopping! Yeah, the music in the Pokemon franchise is always good, but trust me, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald knock it out of the park. Just you wait. Good to have a quick rest stop before the next part of the game, though. Alright, so we continue heading north into yet another route. I'm gonna hope that I don't get any encounters this time. Although I could use the experience points, so you never know. But yeah, I did get an encounter. So, over to Brendan and Torchic, who has hit level 7 and learns Focus Energy. Already, they seem to want to differentiate the 3 starters, even at these early levels, which I like very much. Alright, so May is just staring at a tree, apparently trying to get an encounter without actually moving off the tile. But hey, we can get into a quick battle here. It's time for the first rival battle. And it's going to be maybe just a little bit more than a tackle fight. It's still really early in the game, so it's probably going to end up that way anyways. But I will try to add some variety by actually using Focus Energy. Although, apparently, this is Gen 1 Focus Energy because I did not get a single crit even after using it. But still, scratching the enemy to death is good enough. Scratching the enemy to faint is good enough. Almost caught myself talking about death in a Pokemon game. And as for Mudkip, well, Mudkip got the actual critical hits, go figure. Apparently Focus Energy focuses someone else's energy. So much so that he got another one, when he didn't even need it. Now my Fire Emblem luck is getting into my Pokemon luck. And as for Trico's version, it goes about as well as the other 2 did, but you can actually use Leer if you want to lower the enemy's defense, and I think Pound has maybe a little bit more power. Trico has learned Absorb at level 7, but it's no good here because of the type resistance. That's still a thing. And one more turn. Trico is also either very defensive, or Torchic is just not that strong quite yet. After getting a nice amount of experience points, we have won our first rival battle. You know, they never bothered to level before the first fight. If they did, they would actually win. Also, you notice that May has a green bandana in Emerald version. That's not something I did. The colors just got changed to green for Emerald version, but they don't change to blue in Sapphire for some reason. I beat May on my first try because I actually leveled up, go figure. So now we get our Pokédex and are given the task of catching them all. Well, not exactly. We're not really told about the end goal of completing a guide to all Pokemon in the region, because that's kind of a tough thing to ask a kid to do, and it was tough to ask kids to do back in the day, too. Ignoring the semantics of it all, we can officially say that the journey has begun, because we now have Pokeballs. So let's get going. We have a lot of capturing to do, but first, our mother spots us and interrupts the journey after it has already started. How nice. But for real though, she's actually going to give us a very useful item. Your mother is very helpful in this game as well as in the previous generation. She gives us the running shoes, which allows us to run with a B button. Why we didn't have that from the start is another story, and they also do not work indoors. But thank goodness we can cut down on the travel time just a little bit. Imagine if you had to walk through like several cities and routes at that abysmal speed before you even thought about holding the B button to run. Look at how fast this is, even with the jury-rigged running animation that I gave to Wally here, because normally he doesn't have a running animation. So the first thing we're going to do is get some supplies. So something interesting that they do is that now, when you purchase 10 Pokeballs, you get a free Premier Ball. A Premier Ball is no more or less effective than a regular Pokeball, but this is the first generation to actually track which Pokeball you use to capture a particular Pokemon. So if I capture something with that Premier Ball, it's going to be just a teensy bit more special, because you'll see that Premier Ball every time I send out the Pokemon. It's an incredible detail. But it doesn't come up when you heal at the Pokemon Center, because imagine having to draw 6 different Pokeballs on the screen at once. That would just make the computer explode, right? Ah yes, it's time for our first trainer battle. Oh, I just love this music so much. It really gets me revved up. There are a lot of trainer encounter themes as well. Those are the themes that play before the battles. So what we have here is a pooch hyena? That's an interesting combination of animals. And it actually has a new move that allows it to raise its own attack power, but that won't cause too much trouble. Trico can take a beating. This one just seems to enjoy howling all the time, though. It ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time, and it ain't no friend of mine. Knockout! Alright, Calvin. You'd expect him to have a tiger Pokemon of some kind with a name like that. Alright, now it's time we get around to some capturing. As usual, there's going to be an early bug to go along with the early birds and everything else. This generation saves me a little bit of time by only having one bug Pokemon that evolves into one of two different cocoon Pokemon at level 7 again. However, the choice of which evolution it gets is more or less completely random. It's decided when you catch the Pokemon because of an internal value and so forth. It still evolves at levels 7 and 10, however, which makes me wonder what is even the point of having that middle evolution when you're not going to be in it for very long. And moving on, we have Poochyena, which is a very interesting Pokemon because it's an early game Dark type. I didn't expect that at all. They really want to redeem the Dark type by having you get one very early in the game. Unfortunately, it's going to take a little bit of work to level it up and evolve it, so maybe that'll come somewhere down the line. I don't know, we'll see. By the way, these Pokédex entries are great. There's actually 2 pages of info. That's really nice. Though they do get condensed into 1 page in Emerald version. And here we have Zigzagoon. Zigzagoon is going to be... Zigzagoon has a number of interesting qualities, but the most interesting one to me is the ability. Abilities are a new thing in the 3rd generation. They are essentially passives that work without you having to input any commands. They can be very, very helpful, and... Oh, and here's a brief interlude with a trainer battle, which I am showing off simply because it is the battle where Torchic hit level 8 and learned its elemental move, Ember. Took a little while for it to learn that, but level 8 is not that high, so I'm cool with it. Going back to abilities for a moment, I will try to mention as many of them as I can, but some of them are not that interesting. I think Poochyena's is just guaranteed flee chances in battle, which is nice. Ah yes, and we have berry trees. All of the berry names were changed to sound more like actual berry names. So the regular berry is now called an Oran berry, and the poison cure berry is now called a Pekka berry. They still serve the same function, but they sound like actual berries now. Now, a new feature in this game is that you can plant berries and come back later in order to see that they've grown into trees that you can pick once again. This lets you plant whatever you want, wherever you want, but you do have to actually come back to the berries after a certain amount of real time, or else they'll wither and you waste the berry entirely, so I'm not a huge fan. Anyway, we're battling a Surskit, which is a new water/bug type. Very interesting type combination. Good to see them trying out new ones from time to time. Unfortunately, Surskit is not a Pokemon that I would consider interesting in any way, but then again, I don't exactly research every Pokemon that I meant to capture extensively, so who knows? But did you notice by any chance that Zigzagoon is now holding an item? I didn't give him any items, what gives? That is Zigzagoon's pickup ability. He can randomly pick up items after just about every battle. And believe me, this comes in handy. You can gather a lot of neat items this way. So be sure to check your inventory after every encounter. Gosh, I made it sound like the worst thing in the world, but rest assured, we'll see the potential of this ability in the future. For now, let's finally capture this Surskit. And I'll just apologize right now for leaving Zigzagoon at low health. That beeping does not go away until the battle is over. Sadly, they chose not to get rid of that little annoyance. Okay, without further distraction, where were we? We were, checking in on May, who has knocked out another Zigzagoon and leveled up Mudkip. All of the experience points are going to go to Mudkip. May really likes Mudkips. And Mudkip got Water Gun at level 10. That's interesting. Took until level 10 for the Water type to get their elemental move. That's later than the Fire type. Anyways, there's a potion there. And that's it. Right, so back to Ruby version with Brendan, who is capturing Seedot. Seedot is... Oh, I do not like Seedot. I took one look at the moves it has at base. It has Bide. Why would you ever want Bide? I mean, I did use it to great effect way back in Pokemon Green, but Seedot is just not my kind of Pokemon for the time being. Now, I have to capture this in Sapphire because it only appears in Sapphire and Emerald. This is Lotad, one of the silliest Pokemon when it gets its final evolution, and I adore it for that. Don't really know if I'm going to use it. May's already got a water type. What do I need a water/grass type for? Not the most interesting type combination in the world. Like, all of the weaknesses and resistances of those two types basically get canceled out by one another. Oh well. It's good to catch that because I'll have to trade it to Ruby version later. And we now enter Petalburg City, which is the location of the gym our father works at. So we're going to pay him a visit. Oh yeah, you're real surprised I got here by myself. Well, even my father is patronizing to me. How nice. Oh hey, who's this kid? That's Wally. And Wally wants to actually take up Pokemon training. Or at least have a Pokemon as a companion, that's right. So what we're going to do is actually help him capture it. And this is the capture tutorial. We help someone else capture something. I mean, we don't need a tutorial because we've already been capturing stuff. We got Pokeballs long before this scene. But again, that's a really unique way to handle a capturing tutorial, by helping someone else do it. It's like the tutorial in Final Fantasy VII, where it's Cloud Strife teaching somebody else about materia and all that good stuff. And this capture tutorial can actually be funny as well, because this Ralts that he's about to capture, sometimes it can be shiny. And unfortunately that doesn't stick with all of Wally's later appearances, which would have been epic, but... Another funny thing that can happen is if the luck goes exceedingly well, or I guess unwell in this case, the Zigzagoon can be knocked out, and the game still considers Ralts as having been captured. He doesn't say, oops, let me try that again, which also would have been funny, and also would have been the most incredible detail ever. And I'll also thank Wally for not taking one of my Pokeballs for this. Though, now that I say that, I kind of wish I could give him a Premier Ball and have that carry over into his future appearances. Well, kudos to him for capturing his first Pokemon. Also note that it's a male Ralts. They actually preserved that in future appearances by Wally. Well, mission accomplished. Surely he will return one day and become a great Pokemon trainer. Although, I think he just wanted a companion, so whatever he wants to do, it's up to him. It's nice to have characters that are not totally interested in going crazy. And then Dad suggests taking on the Gym Badge Challenge, which means we're gonna face him one day. That will come at a future time, however. We have capturing to do still. I mean, if I'm gonna play as Wally in Emerald version, I might as well catch an actual Ralts. Although this one is female, so it's not really canonical. I mean, I'm not the real Wally, so might as well just roll with the punches, shall we say. Okay, let's check back in with May and see if she's collected any, 5 Zigzagoons? What? Okay, if that's your team, I won't question it. Alright, let's leave Petalburg City and head over to the next route. This one's got a beach on it, and look at this detail. You can see your footsteps and the footsteps of other trainers. This is beautiful. Oh, hey, look, more berries. There are more Oran berries, and whatever that tree is. I love how all of the berries have unique trees, too. Okay, that's more Pekka berries. We've seen that already. I suppose I will have to plant some berries here. I believe they take a full 24 hours in order to grow, and that's 24 hours of real time. Like I said, I don't like having to come back to my berries 24 hours later. I mean, I guess you could plant them if you're planning on saving the game and coming back tomorrow anyways. This trainer apparently has lots of money. I like how all of the trainer classes are much more defined in this game. Rich boy Winston over here has lots and lots of money for us when we inevitably one-shot his only Pokemon. Maybe spend a little bit of that money on an actual team, buddy. Yeah, trainers in this game are still pretty much cannon fodder. but some of the ones later on in the game can wear you down. I mean, we've just never had anybody like that one youngster with an Ekans. That was a stopping point for me as a kid. 1,400 is a lot of money, though. Speaking of capturing, on this route, we can find a seagull Pokemon called Wingull. Oh, isn't that just the most creative name of the century? Well, it is a water-flying bird Pokemon. I guess that's okay. Water-flying was never really the greatest type combo, in my opinion. It is double weak to electric, after all. But that's one less Wingull dropping things on people. I don't know what they would drop. Speaking of birds, we can also capture a Taillow. Taillow is a pretty nice bird Pokemon. I hope I can use it in the future, but I've kind of already got Torchic here. Torchic is a bird, so it would be flying, right? Anyway, Taillow has a nice ability called Guts, which will double its attack power if it takes a status effect, such as Poison or Paralysis, and I've always loved that. Combos pretty nicely with one of its moves, and even the Pokédex says Taillow is gutsy. And that's how you know this Pokédex knows what's up, unlike certain other Pokédexes. Alright, so we've gotten into another trainer battle. He got sand in his runners. Well, that's not the worst place you can get sand. And hey, that's where my Wurmple has decided to evolve into one of the two cocoons. Unfortunately, which one it picks is more or less random, as mentioned, so we'll probably just have to catch the other one directly. This is your first taste of the new evolution screen. Wurmple has evolved into Cascoon. I know where the coon part comes from, but the Cas is throwing me off a little bit. So, in a repeat of Generation 1, we have our first town with a gym that we cannot battle just yet, and immediately after that is a forest. You see where this is going? But at least it feels refreshing this time. It's not like certain other generations that just copy Viridian Forest wholesale. We won't bother with too many of the random encounters because there's a lot of them. Classic Pokemon forests. But this is a new Pokemon, so I will get this one. This is Shroomish. If you did not pick Trico at the start of the game, then this is an excellent grass type to catch. It starts with Absorb, and it can later learn Mega Drain. This is already a huge improvement over certain other Pokemon that took like 10 or 20 levels before they would even think about getting an improved elemental move. And come to think of it, Viridian Forest, way back in the day, it just didn't have any grass types. They were all bugs and Pikachu. So, this is already a huge improvement. You can see that they are really trying to make Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald a better game. And so far there has been nothing but successes. I mean, this comes relative to my experience with Generations 1 and 2, because those are the most recent ones that I've put any serious attention into. And that was way, way long ago. 2 years isn't that long, is it? Anyways, there's a Paralyze heal here, and we can move forward. And I am, in fact, going to capture the other Cocoon Pokemon. Silcoon, which evolves from Wurmple, as I mentioned, and it does have a different final evolution. I'll spoil something right out of the gate. I wish I had leveled them up to actually get those evolutions sooner than I actually did. But that'll come later. Next up, there is a hidden item in a very obvious location, but first I'm going to get attacked by a Slakeoth. An interesting Pokemon to find here. This is actually the Pokemon that the protagonist's father is most known for raising, and we're about to capture one right now. How ironic it would be if we used Slakeoth against him in the future. Actually, it wouldn't be that ironic, it would just be copycatting, and we don't like doing that. You can see that Slakeoth likes to loaf around, so it just loses every other turn. That's going to make it really difficult to raise. I don't know how the protagonist's father does it. But I guess you don't become a gym leader by using only the best Pokemon, right? You gotta use some variety there. Slakeoth knows a move called Yawn, which will cause you to fall asleep after a couple of turns. Passing on his own laziness to other people, I see. Classic. Alright, so that's another capture under our belts, so we will be getting the Pokédex entry. Lulls around for over 20 hours every day. Wow. There's slacking off, and then there's that. 20 hours every day. So anyone want to tell me why a potion had to be the invisible item there? Like a potion warrants being hidden from the player's view? Ah well. So you can exit the forest on the right side in order to end up in this area right here. This lady tells us that we are a thief if we throw Pokeballs at other trainers' Pokemon. Who's gonna tell her what game came out this generation? Meanwhile, where's Wally? Getting accosted by strangers, apparently. My clothes aren't all that dirty. Isn't that a good thing? Oh, I get it. It's a sign of whether or not I have experience, right? Well, that was pointless. Let's move on. Halfway through the forest, we find somebody looking around. A Pokemon called Shroomis. Oh, you like that Pokemon, huh? I captured it. Oh, but what's this? We are accosted by a literal pirate with the same bandana as me. Go figure. Well, it took long enough, but we finally have the Team Rocket of this game, Team Aqua. However, this team comes with a bit of a twist. So you can see that this guy is very aquatic themed, looking like a pirate and all. He doesn't have a water-type Pokemon with him, though, but other grunts later in the game will. He's very easy to defeat, so I'll just go ahead and do that. But the big twist in Generation 3 on the Team Rocket equivalent is that there's actually two of them. It's actually really cool. In Sapphire version, you face off against Team Aqua, and in Ruby version, you face off against Team Magma, and they will have different teams throughout the game. So that's a really interesting way to make the two versions different. Of course, in Emerald version, they throw in another twist by making you fight both teams. And in this scene, it will just be a Team Aqua grunt. The team is still the same, one single Poochyena. Anyway, for saving that guy, we get a Great Ball. And we apparently need to rush to the next town before the grunt does something nefarious there as well. I can't believe I just used that word. Further up in the forest, there is our first ether. These are still limited in quantity, so I almost never use them because A, I don't need them, B, they're kind of rare. Now that we've made it to the other side of the forest, I just want to say, make sure that you actually talk to people because they usually have an item or something for you. This guy will give you TM09, which is the TM for a new move called Bullet Seed, a multi-hitting grass move. Not exactly useful for the guy who picked Trico, unless you really want to teach Trico Bullet Seed, but that would just be redundant. So here we have another house, which seems to be a garden of some kind. We're going to plant some more berries here. We have cherry berries, which are the same as the Paralyze Cure berries from Generation 2. Oh yeah, a weird thing is that the berries are all numbered, but for some reason the cherry berry is number 1. You'd think the Orion berry would be number 1 because it has the most basic effect of healing 10 HP, but I don't make the rules. So in this back area, there are some very obvious spots with hidden items. There's a Pokeball, there's a potion, and I think in the back there is a super potion. Oh yeah, there it is. Neat little area to collect some items in. And in this house, you can talk to this lady here to receive a key item. It is the Whalmer Pail, which is themed after a water Pokemon we'll become acquainted with later. It's essentially the squirt bottle from Generation 2, but now you can water the berries to make them grow just a teensy bit faster. And in case you run out of berries completely, each day you can pop in here and talk to this girl for a free randomized berry. There's also apparently a machine that mixes up berries into candy. That'll be nice if we can find one later on. Alright, so let's continue. And here we have a lot of money. Wait a minute. Are you Winston? Yeah, that's Rich Boy Winston. Why did Emerald version move him over here? That's strange. Well, it's not the strangest decision in the world. We have a pair of twins here. Now, twins are where we get introduced to another really cool gimmick from Generation 2. The twins no longer just send out one Pokemon at a time, they send out two, prompting you to do the same. Welcome to Double Battles. Double Battles are really great for two reasons. One, it makes it very easy to raise two Pokemon at once because the experience points will be split between them. Second, there are a number of strategies that you can employ in Double Battles. Because you can choose the target of your attacks. There are some attacks that hit both targets. There are attacks that will hit your ally. You can even choose to hit your ally with certain attacks, depending on what you're trying to do. I actually really like Double Battles, however some players feel that it takes longer because you have to input twice as many commands. I don't mind it though. In fact, Honestly, they've added so much to double battles over the years, and they've even made doubles the official format for the official Pokemon tournaments, so why there aren't more games centered around doubles entirely is beyond me. The GameCube games were centered around doubles, and I've always wondered why they didn't just stick with that, because singles, they eventually get boring after a while. Ah well. This lady will give you a Chesto berry. Now, I actually know the meaning of the word Chesto. It is a kind of battle cry in Japanese. Like, if you've played Street Fighter 3 and you've ever wondered why Makoto is always shouting, Chesto! That's why. It's a battle cry. It doesn't really mean anything besides being a battle cry. And it's the berry that wakes you up from your sleep in this game, so very appropriate. And we also have Lepa berries. They will recover some of your power points. No doubt obsoleting ethers entirely because you can actually grow more of these. Go figure! And this fisherman here, you can only battle him by talking to him. He won't walk up to you if he sees you. Unless you, like, come back later in the game, surf on the water. Would he see you then? Oh, hey, Ivan, what are you doing in Pokemon? And why do you have nothing but Magikarp on your team? Go figure. I didn't know we would be getting an Ivan cameo, but here he is apparently. Yeah, you'd think he would be using some other water types, though. Oh well. Magikarp is the usual. Moving on. Now, don't advance into the city quite yet, because if you take the path through the gate here, or behind the fence rather, there's an X defend. X items are still kind of just not useful in my opinion, but we'll grab this one just in case. Maybe sell it off for some extra money. Now we officially walk into Rustboro City. And there are a lot of items to be found here. Unfortunately, I missed most of them. Shh, don't tell anyone. The first item on our agenda is the first out of, like, 3 or 4 in-game trades. There really aren't that many in Generation 3. But this is awful. A C-Dot for a Ralts? What kind of trade is that? I am not giving up my Ralts for that. Yeah, that was actually changed for Emerald version. Originally, it was a Slakoth for a Makuhita, which is a very, very good trade. You cannot find Makuhita yet. But you can find Slakoth, so I will give up on my dream of defeating my dad with his own Pokemon and settle for something that's much more likely to actually beat him, come to think of it. Makuhita is the first fighting type you can get your hands on, and that's going to be very useful because Rustboro City is where we find the first gym. Guess what type they use? In another homage to Generation 1, it's a Rock-type gym! Although, thankfully, the gym leader here is far more competent than Brock. Well, after telling you that, also, Makuhita was holding an X attack, I don't know why. Well, it's time to take on the first gym of the game. Looks very basic, it's got a couple trainers you can fight off for some extra experience points. This guy says not to take him lightly, but, I'd say he's light years away from ever hoping to defeat me. Is that a callback or what? Nothing special about him, really. He's got Geodude, which, as we all know, is double weak to water and grass. So a combination of Shroomish and Makuhita should be very good here. And by combination, I mean I'm using the switch trick in order to get some experience points on Makuhita. Wow, that was extra painful for him. A critical hit on top of the double weakness. That's a lot of damage. Right, so instantly Makuhita gets up to level 8. I can't remember if he starts with a good fighting move. We'll have to see if he can get a good one before the gym leader. The gym was actually restructured a little bit in Emerald version, and also we get introduced to another mechanic. If 2 trainers spot you at the exact same time, they will actually gang up on you and initiate a double battle, which seems almost dishonorable. But then again, they force you into every battle anyways. They don't let you choose whether you fight them or not, so I guess they don't really care about honor at this point. I've leveled up Ralts to the point where she learned Confusion. She doesn't start with Confusion. I had to do some serious leveling in order to get her up there, but the duo of Ralts and Trico will surely do very well here. I mean, Psychic might not be effective against rock types, but it's still a special attack against a physical-oriented enemy. So this should be very, very simple. Mud Sport. You know what that does? It weakens electricity. Buddy, you are already immune to that anyways! With those trainers out of the way, we can now face the gym leader, Roxanne, and I can already tell that Brock would fall in love with this girl. If Brock did not instantly fall in love with her in the anime, I am going to be very disappointed. Her team consists of a Geodude and a new rock type known as Nosepass, and they're just going to get wiped by Mudkip here. Like, Water Gun just will ruin them. It's a special attack. Nosepass is weak to it. Geodude is double weak. You can imagine where that went. Brendan was able to easily defeat Geodude with Shroomish here, but for Nosepass, we need to get a little bit more creative. Shroomish also learned Stun Spore, which I'm going to use here because Nosepass has a move called Rock Tomb, which in addition to doing a lot of rock damage, will also lower the speed of whoever it hits. So I want to use that Paralysis first to remove that problem. Paralysis will make it so that I always go first. And then we bring in Makuhita, who knows a move called Arm Thrust, which is a multi-hitting fighting move. It's actually based on that hand-slapping move that sumo wrestlers use. If you've played Street Fighter, E Honda does that all the time. And he knocks me out every time with it. I hate it. Also, Makuhita resists rock-type attacks, being fighting-type and all. So, yet another Pokemon you can trade for in order to deal with a gym that you might be having trouble with. If you chose Torchic, that is. Now, Emerald version decided to switch up this battle in a couple of ways. First of all, they added an additional Geodude to Roxanne's team, which is not much, really, but the thought is appreciated. And also, Nosepass now has an Oran Berry. I don't think Nosepass has that in Ruby and Sapphire. I could be mistaken. But it also has Block, which is a move that will stop you from being able to switch out your Pokemon. This could actually get a little bit sticky because Absorb is not doing that much damage. Apparently Nosepass decided to get some special defense going, and also Roxanne has potions, so she might be able to outlast us, typical for a rock gym leader. It's going to take a lot of doing. It'll take the entire team's effort, but if we send out Ralts here, then we should be able to... You went for Block. You were supposed to go to Rock Tomb and leave Ralts at 1 health. We rehearsed this, Nosepass. We rehearsed this. Never mind what I just said. But, hey, we beat Roxanne. Ralts learned Double Team. We're gonna abuse that later. Just sit and listen for a minute, okay? Is this, or is this not, the most emotional gym leader victory theme you have ever heard? This is a beauty, okay? I'm gushing, but... oh, the first time you hear it, it is so good! What a reward for winning a tough battle. Relatively tough battle. And you might not even hear all of it. This should play on the map screen after the battle is done. Oh. Okay, I think that's enough. We can move on. Well, that's 1 gym badge down, only 7 more to go. The Stone Badge. How creative. I guess that's better than... you know, the Boulder Badge sounded cooler. It still gives us badge boosts, and we can now use Cut outside of battle, although we never got the HM for it. That's strange. And we also get the TM for Rock Tomb. Not sure if I'm going to use that later. We'll see. TMs can still be only used once and all that. So, with that done, oh, hey, the Zigzagoons have full heal. Wow. Revive? Really? Wow. Well, that'll do it for the first episode of the Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald playthrough, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you next time with the continuation of this journey. Later, everyone.